COVID emergency preamble. Good morning. As chair of the Raynes Farm Stewardship Committee, I'm declaring that an emergency exists and I'm invoking the provisions of RSA 91A23B. Federal, state, and local officials have determined that gatherings of 10 or more people pose a substantial risk to our community and its continuing efforts to combat the spread of COVID. I also find that this meeting is imperative to the continued operation of town government and services, which are vital to public safety and confidence during this emergency. As such, this meeting will be concluded without a quorum of this body physically present in the same location. At this time, I also welcome members of the public accessing this meeting remotely. Even though this meeting is being conducted in a unique manner, under unusual circumstances, the usual rules of conduct and decorum apply. Thank you for your patience. So we'll start by doing a roll call. And when I say your name, just say where you are and whether or not there's anyone else in the room with you. And we'll start with Bill.
Bill Campbell, regular member, and I'm alone.
And Sally Ward, chair, and I'm alone at the moment. Kathy?
Jenny Robb, and I'm at home, and there is no one else here.
Kathy?
Kathy Norton, and I'm alone in the room.
And Kristen?
But not alone. And I do see that Jillian and Richard Cole are on the attendee list.
Oh. So not, when you say they're on the attendee list, what do you mean?
It appears as though they are attending as members of the public versus...
Oh, I see. Okay.
We can promote them to panelists if that's them.
Yeah, let's do that.
Yes.
So I just, I guess we'll allow Richard to talk here, and you can unmute yourself, Richard, and once we know that you're you, we'll promote you to a panelist there.
Yeah, I didn't see the any instructions on the website for how to sign on as a member of the committee. So I just went with the public format.
Yeah, so I'll promote you to a panelist here.
So Richard, could you say for the official record your name and whether or not you're alone in the room where you are?
I am not alone. I'm at home. Okay. There are my grandchildren are here. So
lucky you.
I have a 4-year-old that may run in and out every once in a while.
And I see Ben Anderson has joined us. Ben, are you alone? Can you hear me, Ben?
I'm having trouble hearing, but I'm going to go get some headphones and that should help. I'll be right back.
Okay.
Should Jillian Price also be?
Yes.
Okay. Hey Jill, you should be able to unmute and say hi.
Hi, this is Jillian Price. I am alone in the room.
Great, thank you so much. And I do want to welcome our 2 new members. Jillian Price will be the voting member representing the Historical Society, and Richard Cole, the alternate. So welcome both of you to the Raynes Farm Stewardship Committee. Oh, there you are. Yes. Hi, Jillian.
Hello.
Thank you for joining us.
Sure.
You're welcome.
Good to meet you all.
And Kristen, if you could add their names to the to our roster of members on the website, that would be great. Thank you.
Okay, will do.
Okay, so I don't see, are there any members of the public who want to make any comments that don't pertain to an agenda item? Good morning, Richard.
I do not see a hand up, but there is a public listener.
Okay, but no hand up. So we'll proceed. The first item is the approval of the minutes of the meeting of June 30th. And I didn't see anything that I thought needed to be changed. They were quite comprehensive. Thank you, Kristen. anyone else have comments or recommendations, edits for the minutes of June 30th?
I'll move that they be approved as submitted.
I'll second.
Okay, let's. Molly Ward votes yes. Ben, are you with us, Ben? Ben's not back with us yet. Bill Campbell?
Yes.
Kathy Norton?
Yes.
Ginny Robb?
Yes.
And Jillian, your first official duty, but since you weren't here, perhaps, where did Jillian go? Oh, there she is.
Yeah. I did review the minutes and they look in order to me, so yes.
Great, thank you all. So that's minutes are approved. I thought we should start after the minutes with an update on things that have happened since our last meeting. One of the things we talked about last time was doing a site visit to review the mowing and what needs to be done. And Bill and Kathy and Kristen and I did that and made a list of priorities for mowing. And since that time, David O'Hearn has done the clearing of the brush on the, I guess it's the east side of the field, where the Russian olive was intruding on the field, and he has completed that work. Is that correct, Kristen?
No, he still has hours left in what was approved. He's starting to work on the northern edge. Great.
So it's just following what our recommendations were in terms of his time. That's great. The cemetery. On a pro bono basis by Keith Whitehouse at Yetis, and we appreciate that. I wrote him a note of thanks, and he's really stayed on top of that, so I appreciate that. And Ben, thank you, Ben, for clearing. He cleared the brush on the road side of the wall across from his place at the request of, who was it that wanted you to do that? The State Department of Public Works, was that what it was? Can you hear me, Ben?
Nope, not yet.
Oh.
I can only hear you a little bit. It's weird. I can get my kids on for school, but I can't fix mine, but I'll get there.
Okay.
So it was DOT, NHD.
Department of Transportation had made that request, and Ben cleared it because of the events that he's doing at the Word Barn. They wanted that area cleared, and that was to benefit to us as well. So thank you. I wish I could do sign language. Thank you, Ben. And also Kathy, thank you very much, cleared the vines off of the barn, and we appreciate that work.
You're welcome.
And was there any other update on I did want to ask you, Kristen, what's happening with the haying operation now? I knew that because of the drought, there was a question about the second cutting. Do you know what the status of that is?
So they did complete a second cut just maybe 2 weeks ago. I don't have the date. And then along those lines, about that same time, Public Works, Jeff Beck had the barn, the exterior of the barn, right up close to the barn mowed.
Great. So all of that's, I think we're in good shape with regard to all of that. So thank you all. Anything else on mowing that people have comments or questions?
Just to let you know, I can hear you now. Beautifully.
Oh, good. Great.
Figured it out.
Well, we were thanking you for the clearing work that you did.
Oh, no problem.
Thank you. Okay, let's move on to events. And we do have an event scheduled for October, and I thought we ought to discuss that at least briefly. So 2 questions, and that's the Skywatch, the New Hampshire Astronomical Society. And so the 2 questions are, is the Astronomical Society still willing to, because we're still in COVID situation, are they still willing to do that, and do we still want it to go forward? So there would be 2 aspects to it. One, the presentation inside the barn, and then the other, the Skywatch. So Ginny, I wonder if you could reach out to them and find out if they are still planning to do this presentation. given the fact that we're still in quarantine, so to speak.
I guess I've been postponing contacting them, hoping for an enlightenment,
Yeah.
some type of signal that, we might be able to. I don't think it looks too promising. Ben, what is the state or town guidelines for the number in an event? Is it?
So it varies depending on whether you're indoors or outdoors. I'm more privy with the outdoors because I'm not doing anything indoors at this time. But my understanding for indoors is as long as you maintain
The
6 feet distancing at all times, whether seated or standing, that it's allowed. And the same holds true for being outside, is that determines the capacity in which you're allowed for a gathering. There's currently no cap, just as long as there's enough room for 6 feet apart.
I guess I was thinking that it's really impossible to have 6 feet in the barn. I mean, that would certainly limit the number of people that could go. But I will reach out to them and see what they've done.
Okay.
Is there any way to do it all outside?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
But the plan has to be approved by not only the select board, but
Right.
the health commissioner, or what is the
Health inspector.
it's a town position of health and welfare or health something. So I suppose by the first, we've got to do something within the next week or so.
Did we have a limit that we placed on the number of participants, or do they place?
No,
None.
not as of yet, no.
And Kristen, have we put it out there that this event is happening for people to?
Yeah, so we had it posted. We're receiving ticket orders still as we speak. I wish I would have checked the number of tickets that have been sold, but yeah, so we had it, we canceled it and said it was rescheduled for October 16th. And so, I think, I know it's not that far away. I guess it's only a month away, but
It is only a month away.
but there could be options. I know Parks and Rec does have a blow up project, or what am I trying to say? Like
Screen.
a blow up screen. So it could be that perhaps we could set something up outside. But maybe it's just this event relies on people sharing telescopes. And so it would require a pretty dramatic shift in where we are today, I would think, for them to even want to go forward with the event. But maybe it could just be a presentation, or, and then we gaze with our just eyes unassisted.
Could it be a bring your own binoculars type event?
Yeah, we could do that too. So I think I hadn't actually thought about the fact that there would be telescopes and people would be sharing those, but I think that what we should do is, Ginny, if you could connect with the astronomical folks and find out what their thinking is, and then we can decide on our end whether to go forward. Does that work for you, Ginny?
Certainly.
Great.
Would we have a meeting before that? That's only a couple weeks away.
We could that. The other issue is involving the full Conservation Commission, and we meet again. We would have the Conservation Commission meets on the 13th, which is earlier in the week of this event. I could connect with, once we decide whether we're going to go forward, we could connect with the chair of the commission.
I'd be willing to leave it to the chair and Kristen and Ginny, and perhaps Ben with power. Let you make the decision.
Yeah.
If it has to be made.
Yep. Is everyone agreeable with that?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. So, Jenny, you'll keep me posted on that. Thank you. we'd also talked about doing a cleanup date in the barn. And again, I have a question. When we talked about this, we weren't sure what things were going to look like in September/October. I had thought later in September. I'm thinking now of the tentatively scheduling something for October 3rd, which would be prior to the Skywatch event. It would be nice to get things more orderly inside the barn. But again, I don't, my thinking is, yes, Kristen.
I'm sorry, I just noticed that Don Brisleton is outside as a member of the public.
Oh.
So I'm wondering, Bob, could you
elevate him?
Do your magic and admit him?
Good morning, Don.
Don, you should be able to unmute yourself, and once we hear it's you, we'll pop you through. There might be an issue with your microphone there, Don.
Well, we'll continue, and Don will chime in when he's able. I would say tentatively October 3rd, but again, and I seek your wisdom on this. It's not clear to me whether we should do that if we're still under the current circumstances. And I wonder what your thoughts are, because we would be gathered in the barn, and the air circulation is not great inside the barn. And should we just postpone that until the circumstances change, or should we try to do something before the Skywatch? What are your thoughts?
So my thought is to defer to the New Hampshire Astronomical Group. I feel like people are reinventing activities in ways that, I wouldn't necessarily have thought of myself. And so they've probably been dealing with this for other events as well. And they might have some innovative way to continue this without, oh, you're talking cleanup. I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
I got lost in there. I think, I don't know, I could go either way there.
Well, let's
if you had 2 or 3 people, that would work, but you really want, half a dozen.
Right, all hands on deck.
Get in trouble.
And we would invite people, members of the public, to participate. I mean, part of the idea is to get the work done, but also to invite the public more and more into the barn. Right. And so I'm going to propose that we tentatively say October 3rd, and then if it's okay with everyone, leave the final decision up to perhaps Kristen and me as to whether we'd go forward with that. And if we do, then we'll put out an invitation. Is that okay with everyone?
Is that a Friday?
It's a Saturday.
It's a Saturday?
It's a Saturday, yeah. It's if I could turn to another issue that was also related to and I'll ask for an update from Ginny and perhaps Bill, related to the interpretive signs that we were developing for the equipment that's in the barn. And so the idea is we would have interpretive signs labeling that equipment, and we would organize the equipment in some fashion that makes it easier for folks to enter the barn when that becomes possible, and to see what's there from the building on our history of agriculture and the importance of the barn in that history. So I know that Ginny, you had been working with
Jen
Piskovich, and she was going to do the artistic side of things. Yeah. So where are we on that?
I have been delinquent, I admit it. I intend to follow up with that. It's a little bit more well, anyways, I'll follow up with that.
So maybe you could, not right at this moment, but maybe give me and I can share with others an update on what equipment still needs to have some text built around it, so that we know where we are on that. If you could let me know, that'd be great. Okay. Also, Ben, can you hear me?
Yep.
So Ben had messaged Kristen and me about an event he's going forward with at the Word Barn, and there might be a potential for future partnership. If you could talk a little bit about your wildlife event, what you're doing, and what your concept is there, Ben. Again, this is not for immediate action by the Raynes, but it could be that it turns into something that we'd want to incorporate at Raynes.
Yeah, thanks. So we just introduced yesterday or announced a new wildlife series in partnership with the Center for Wildlife. And the first one is going to be a Raptors and Reptiles, in which they will bring their various ambassadors and give an hour-long talk to people and give people the opportunity to see the various species, all of which are local species, and just learn more about what their needs are, what they eat, and how we can help them. It's a program that they offer throughout the area, primarily in Maine. But this is a COVID-conscious variation of it. So while people had the opportunity to touch and different items in the past, that's no longer the case. So we're going to kick off with that. We've already had a great response to the announcement, and we're hoping to follow up with an owl prowl next month, where the same thing, the Center for Wildlife will bring some of their owl ambassadors to the Word Barn. This is all outside in our meadow, and give people the chance to see and meet these different species, learn about them, and then go on a little walk and see if we can't spot some ourselves. And the intent is that where I'd like, or I will, I'm going to donate a portion of the proceeds back to the Conservation Commission, earmarked for the Raynes Farm property for us to do with it as we see fit as best. I don't know how much that will be. We'll see, but hopefully it'll grow over time and help.
I think it's a wonderful concept.
And I had tossed out there that maybe there was something down the road, in more normal times, or in the next warm season, that we could partner around the woodcock, or some of the bird walks on the Raynes side of the road. So maybe just again to raise awareness about the property and the various species that are using that for habitat and the importance. I thought that maybe this would just create a foundation to sort of naturally flow into something like that.
I think it's a great concept.
Raynes at all? I'm sorry. Would this involve Raynes?
Not at this time. It would be all on this side of the road.
It is something for us to consider for the future, as Ben has suggested, and I think it's a great idea.
And a wonderful opportunity to provide support to the barn. I think that's amazing, Ben. Thanks. You for that.
Thanks.
What is the date of the first one?
Thursday, September 24th, 5:30 to 6:30, and it's not a kids program. Kids are most welcome. It's a family-friendly program, but this is an environmental educational program. It's it's geared towards adults, but kids are most welcome, and will certainly be entertained and inspired and educated, we hope.
Great. And how many people do you have signed up to come, Ben?
Right now we're at 20.
Great.
Oh, wow.
That's great. Okay. Anything else on that, folks? So this, departing from the agenda a little bit, I want to talk about LCHIP, but before that will be the concluding discussion. I want to spend some time on that. Let's do the other category, which is last on the agenda before we get into LCHIP. And there were a couple of things that actually Bill had reminded me. I apologize, I didn't request agenda items from the committee before putting out the agenda, and Bill reminded me there were a couple of things that had come up. One concerns handicap access for the property and the barn. And Bill, I wonder if you could just summarize for us the discussion that you've had, and then we can open it up for ideas about enhancing the handicap accessibility. Bill?
First of all, I apologize for not following up with the Facilities Committee. That's what started last August or sometime, that we asked to have the Facilities Committee take a look at the barn. And they agreed, and they asked for information. Kristen sent them a bunch of information. We were supposed to set up a site walk, and then they got distracted by pretty important stuff, work at the Public Works, and then one of the other facilities too. So they went off their agenda, and it went off my agenda for a while. They have scheduled, I think was last meeting, they had it back on the agenda, but I didn't go to the meeting and they haven't published the minutes yet. But at any rate, that was where it started, because one of the people on the Facilities Committee is Amanda Kelly, I think that's her name, right? Who has a 8-year-old, I believe, a young woman who's in a wheelchair. And she goes out there, and there were two things that she was hoping for. One was access to the trails, although she didn't want to go through the woods particularly, but she wanted to be able to get down there, and perhaps we could have a trail along the edge of the woods, the north end of the field, where I think David might be scheduled to do some cutting at some point. But then she said, when we went up to, we hope to have a little bit of a parking lot. She said, well, trail from that parking lot out to where there's a huge bush on the hill right now, which I believe an invasive bush. I think it's barberry, or maybe it's, I'm not sure, but it's not a great one to have there. And she thought that maybe if we took that out, got Public Works perhaps to take it out, and then smoothed out that area, I don't know what more it would take. I haven't investigated that. But she thought a little trail from there, she could drive up there and then park, and then have her daughter go out onto that little prominent place, because it's sort of the top of the hill where Ben wants to have people sitting. And if you look out that way, you see the whole beautiful valley and the farm out towards the cemetery. So I don't know what it would take to have something like that, but I thought I'd bring it up anyway to the committee. The first part, she just asked, she said, there's a big log there, which we put to prevent people from driving on the field, but on the other hand, they drive on it anyway from the south end of the parking lot. So the north end, I thought we could probably cut it shorter, so that somebody with a wheelchair could get to the trail down to the trailhead. The logs are not doing what they're supposed to do, because we've opened up so much on the south side of that parking lot. And unfortunately, just a couple of weeks ago, we had a vehicle go out there, some sort, at least made tracks, went all the way out to the far field. So the log's not doing it. If the commission doesn't mind, I'll ask Jeff Beck if he can get that cut shorter so that that's accessible. That would be the first thing, I guess. Did anybody see a problem with doing that?
No, I think it's anything we can do to improve access is good.
It's not an easy parking lot to work with a wheelchair, because the gravel is so large.
Yeah.
But she said that would be a help anyway. But then if you drive up the hill to the place where we were thinking of putting parking, that's where she thought perhaps a short trail from there out to that prominent place. We weren't thinking of access to the barn yet, because that's going to be more expensive. I don't know what it would take. I will investigate it if the people think it should be investigated or could be investigated. Any thoughts?
So the tree on the hill, well, there are several trees, but one of the trees on the hill is a cedar tree. That was the one that we had strung lights on, around the holiday season. But there are other bushes out there. I guess I would be interested in hearing again from Jeff Beck about the plans for that upper parking area and see if there's a way to incorporate that, and to hear more about the year-long plan for this. Is this something that we would then need to keep mowed? How would that work with the haying situation going forward? Or is it close enough to the place where Jeff was planning on putting the gravel parking that it would remain open just because there's gravel there?
Yeah, I think you'd have to smooth out the trail. And Amanda said that while the gravel down on the regular parking lot is fairly large and not very accommodating to wheelchairs, there's smaller gravel that you can use. I would not think of paving. I would just think of getting some sort of base that so that you could get a chair out there. I don't know. That's what I need to investigate. And I don't want to cut into the haying part so that Dan could mow right over it, so to speak, and there would be no implement except for the path itself. There'd be no hay there. I can investigate it with Jeff if the commission thinks, or the committee thinks that it's a possibility.
I think it would be useful to follow up with Jeff, both about the path and removal of the shrub that you mentioned, and we'll report to the Conservation Commission at the next meeting that this is our one of the things we're looking into. And Kristen, perhaps you could follow up with Jeff about what the current thinking is about that parking area. I know we were going to do gravel at some point, and then they got moved on to other public works got moved on to other things. So maybe if you could follow up with Jeff about the parking and see what their plan is, and express that it would be our goal to still have that parking area done with the gravel.
I can do that.
Great.
Could I ask one other question of Kristen? For the facilities committee, did they ever ask for a date for
site visit?
No, I had responded to the committee looking for some potential dates. I gave them my work schedule and said if those times don't work out, it could be that I could reach out to a stewardship committee member to open the barn for them.
Right. I can reach out to them too. I'll talk to you about getting in touch with them again, because I think we should push them a little bit, especially if we're going to be doing something with LCHIP.
Yeah, I think their involvement, I think, is very beneficial. And when you do reach out to them, I would like to be included on the site walk if that works out.
Something else they're going to see if they go out is that there's a soffit board on the back corner by the silo that is actually falling out of its position. It certainly is going to let the weather in. I don't know whether the pigeons can get in there or not, but it's looking pretty sad.
There's a number of, we might be jumping ahead to the LCHIP piece, but there's a number of pieces of siding as well, which have both fallen off and are falling off. It's
needs to be dealt with.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so before we move on to the LCHIP, I just want to bring up two other things just to update the committee. One is that Bill and I have been working on revising the development plan document, and we have a draft of some of the appendices have been revised. We won't do anything with that before it's vetted by the whole committee, but I wanted you to know that that is ongoing. And it's one of my goals for the fall to complete the update of that document. Also, going back to events, because we had a successful winter solstice event last year, I would like to do that again this year. The solstice is on Monday, December 21st. I don't know if we would actually do it on the day of the solstice or if it might be better for people's ability to participate to do it on that Sunday. But in any case, if everyone agrees, I'd like to try to move forward with that, depending on where we are with COVID in December. Does that work for everybody?
Sounds good.
I thought it was quite a successful event last year. So,
yeah, it was fun.
And what do you think? Should it be on the actual day of the solstice, even though it's on Monday? It would be, later in the day, because we'd do a lantern walk again when it gets dark. I don't know what time the sun sets on December 21st this year.
What day of the week is it?
It's a Monday.
Would Sunday kind of better?
There's a nice novelty of being on the solstice.
Yeah, I like the idea of it being on the solstice. And it would be, if kids are back in school face to face, it would be well beyond when they'd be getting out of school.
And I would definitely lean towards doing it on the actual solstice as well.
Yeah, great. Okay, so we'll make that a tentative plan, and we'll keep everyone posted. Okay, so moving on to LCHIP.
I see Ben's hand is up.
I'm sorry, Ben.
Sorry, I had an item for the other business, but I'm happy to wait for after LCHIP if you like, or I can talk about it now.
Let's. Why don't you go ahead with it?
Okay. So I have an item that I wanted the input from the Stewardship Committee that was recently brought to my attention, without going into the full details because we're all well aware of the pandemic. But of course, the Word Barn was shuttered as of mid-March, lost all of our events with everything canceled. But with the warm weather, the return of the warm weather, come July, we reached out to the town and obtained approval to start doing things in our meadow. And as we've already discussed, and I hope everyone's aware of it, everything is open air, distanced, contactless, and it's been working out great for the interim. We know that come the end of October, if not before, we'll be closed again with the turn of the weather. But we're happy to get these events in as we can. But where the meadow events take place is where we generally put some of our cars. So in order to keep enough area open so it's safe for people, we shifted some of our vehicles to our lower field, which has not been used for anything. And the silver lining of everything is that area actually has proven out to be so much better for handling cars. The access point in and out is much safer and easier for people to navigate. And people are able to safely park themselves and just walk a short footpath to get to the meadow. Now, and we've accessed that lower field, and Kathy's probably going to know because I can't figure out if it's an old cattle road, because the road goes straight across Raynes into the straight across 85 into Raynes, into the main field. This is south of us, bordering where the Captain's Way mows, almost directly across from where the fire hydrant is that's pulling out of the Raynes pond. So there's a road that cuts and joins the two fields. It's either an old cattle passage or haying road, but we've used that. So that brings me to where I am today and seeking your advice, is that DOT has taken a look at this and said that it's a wonderful access point with great vision, with the exception of one thing, there is one tree whose trunk is in the way of sight lines, especially when coming south. The tree is located at the other access point on the Raynes side, where you enter just south of the barn near where the well house is. It's right on the road. It's bordering the DOT property and Raynes. It's questionable whose land it sits on. It's been hit by a snowplow. and it is joined by 2 sugar maples, which are further back on Raynes' property, one that's currently being overshadowed by this tree. So I'm looking for your inputs and potentially your support to take this to the Conservation Commission to have this tree removed, so I'm allowed to use this access point. Without its removal, DOT says I will no longer be allowed to use this access point. It will not only allow that access point to road to continue, but it will also improve the overall safety of that passage of driving up and down 85, because it gives you a better vantage point. It can also improve when we as Raynes are entering that other access road onto Raynes' property and maneuvering that turn, if you will, by that well house. So I would love to get your input. I know removing trees is always tough. This tree is right on the road again, and it has been struck and scarred by the snowplow, so it has no habitat benefits. But again, I'd love to have your input and hopefully your support to take this to the Conservation Commission.
So 2 questions. One, what type of tree is it?
I'm pretty sure that it's an American elm.
American elm. So I would like to, and if others agree, I would like to look at it just to see what we're talking about before taking it to the Conservation Commission. But if you could put a tape around the tree or something to indicate which tree you're talking about, that would be helpful for those of us who want to go and take a look.
Certainly.
What do others think?
I was out the other day to look at it, and it's one of those things where you and I would probably say it's not a problem with the sight line because it's pruned high enough so that you can really look around it. But the state being the state says it's got to go, then it's got to go. And being a tree hugger, I was not too great on cutting trees down, but I think the advantage here is that, and it is a fairly sized tree. I would say maybe 15-inch diameter, maybe a little more than that. So it's not something you just chop down. And I would like to find out if the state is really the ones that have to take it down. I think they would if they thought it was a driving. But I guess I would go with it because it would benefit more than just leaving it there. But maybe you should take a...
Yeah, so the other question would be, if we recommended and if the Conservation Commission agreed that the tree could be removed, who would be removing it?
I would certainly have it removed at my expense, at no expense to Raynes.
Okay. For
sure.
Good to know. So I would say I'd like to take a look, and then we'll, if it's okay with the committee, we could bring it up to conservation.
Kathy, do you recognize? I mean, do you know the tree offhand?
I know the area. I can't visualize the tree. I know there's also been rocks moved on the stone wall, but I don't know when that happened. It could have been 10 years ago. So I'm a little concerned about what's been created as a barway in that same area that never existed before.
Kathy, what do you mean by a barway? Sorry.
I've used that term before, and you've asked me that. It's an opening in the stone wall. It's an opening in the stone wall where tractors have come and gone. And this was never opened before. So, but it just became visible from after Ben's mowing. So I can't tell. I don't know when it happened.
That's exactly what I was thinking, because I did clear the brush, and I cleared the brush. I could see where the scarring was from where it was last cleared. And I think it was well over 10, maybe 15 years when it was last cleared. So nothing was cleared beyond what had been cleared before. But I was surprised to find that that opening in the rock wall, nothing was, it was there. And I had never noticed it before. So there's essentially 3 entry points south of the barn to get into the fields. But it was that third one that I had never noticed before. And maybe the brush was just hiding it. I don't know.
That's why I say I can't tell when the rocks were removed because, whoops. Oh.
Thank you. Wow.
There we go. Look at that technology.
Yeah.
Thank you, Bob.
That's directly across from there's the roads. And directly across the road is the one leading onto my lower field. There it is.
So that I know has been there at least since I've been here, because I believe the pin for the southern boundary of Raynes Farm is.
So if you hold that view right there, you can see, well, that brush has been removed along the right hand of the road. So you can see all the way around the corner, and you can now see the barn when you're driving north there, because the brush has been cut back to underneath the power line. And you can see in the tree canopies where, it had been originally cut back to. And so that's been restored. So the sight line is there. So you can really see the cars coming around, which is beneficial even if you're just driving on the road and you have nothing to do with either properties, you can see the oncoming traffic. But there is one lone tree that is, if you see that utility pole, it's almost as close to the road as that, but it's just beyond that utility pole. Oh, we might actually. This is great. There its canopy hangs over the power utility lines.
I see.
That's an oak. It's if you turn north towards the barn. This is great. There it is. Snagged up in the utility lines. It's that. Pretty sure. Yeah. So in behind there to the right are the 2 sugar maples that are being overcrowded, and which. The blessing is they'll take off if that tree is able to be removed. So the visual won't be, it has no habitat benefit, but it's certainly a nice visual, but it won't be void of trees because you'll have those sugar maples. So that's the one right there.
Uh-huh.
And that gives you a better idea how close to the road it is.
The one that's closest to the road.
Yep.
Yeah. The one he's circling.
Yep.
So you have the 2 sugar maples, and there's actually the third, which is next to the well.
Yep. Okay, so I'll still take a look and maybe connect with you, Ben, while I'm out there. But if you could,
I'll ribbon it.
And so we could bring this up to Conservation Commission on its next meeting, if the committee concurs.
Appreciate that.
Okay, so I want to spend our last few minutes talking about LCHIP. So this year, as you know, we did not go forward with an LCHIP application, but our intention is to go forward for next year. So this is a good time to start thinking about it and doing the work. We already have a lot in place. I wanted to review with you the schedule we're talking about and what the immediate things are that would need to happen to move forward. So I'm proposing that starting at the end, the application would be due in June of 2021. The intent to apply would be May of 2021. So we have several months to put things in place and to do our application. We have an application that we put in last time that would be a good basis for moving forward. And what I think we would need to do is over the next 2 or 3 months to update the facilities plan. We have several documents that specify what is the work that needs to be done, what are the potential costs. That needs to be revised to bring it up to date. And Don had done quite a bit of work on that, and we have some ideas about people to contact to revise the facilities plan. So that I'm saying October to December, we would be working on that. January, February, we would be in a position to then review what the final result is, and that would give us our bottom line for what we would be asking for LCHIP. And just to remind you, with LCHIP, the LCHIP would provide half of the funds for whatever it is that we determine is needed. We're talking somewhere around the neighborhood of $200,000. And then the town would have a warrant article for the other part of it, if we were to get the funding. The other specific thing that happens with LCHIP is they do have workshops for those who are intending to apply, and that happens in April. So we have time, but we need to start moving. And it's a little uncertain how much it's going to cost to do the update of the facilities plan. And I think what we would need to do going forward is to make a request to the Conservation Commission for potential expenditure of funds to update the plans. Kristen, I wonder if you have anything you would like to add about that.
No, I mean, I don't think so. I think Don had outlined a pretty extensive process for updating I always confuse the name of these documents, but the structural assessment of the barn. And so this is the document that talks about not just repair needs, and as you know, time has passed since it was last completed, but it also talks about, or should talk about, how to achieve those repairs while staying within the Secretary of Interior standards. And so we did have a draft RFP that Don had put together. I shared with Public Works a bit ago. This was probably last winter, or anyway. And they seem to feel a less extensive estimate or process for updating the numbers could achieve the same results. But I think it would be missing that key piece of how are we achieving and meeting the Secretary of Interior standards. And that was one item that was pointed out specifically by the LCHIP grant application review group. So I think that is an important component, but it does make me wonder if there's a way to achieve this update, get the right language in there without a very extensive cost. So Don, your approach included two phases. I think they were broken out into. One was updating the numbers, and the second one was developing the design plans in order to make the improvements. And part of me wonders if it's possible to separate those items out. But again, I'm not an engineer. This is not my expertise. I think in terms of getting sound numbers, it would be better to have engineered plans, but I do think without knowing that LCHIP funds would be granted, that would be a big endeavor to take on.
Thank you, Kristen, for that update. Sorry, folks, that I'm not on video, but I did manage to get the microphone working. Yes, a lot's in memory has deteriorated since March when we all went into the COVID. So thanks for refreshing. There was a scope of work. It was a draft. You did share it with Public Works. I would suggest that whoever wants to, perhaps Christian, you and I, and someone meet with Public Works again to refresh that, to really get a common understanding of the minimal but necessary scope of work that would be necessary to satisfy the LCHIP requirements. I do feel that there is a necessary amount of scope of work and some plans or documentations that are going to be necessary, not necessarily for LCHIP, but really to define the work that needs to be done when we go to get it accomplished. This is not a point and tell. This is not the kind of thing where you can just walk around the barn and say, fix this, fix that, fix that. You've got to have some satisfying scope of work and enough detail in the plans for a contractor to bid, or contractors to bid on the work. That assumes that we get the LCHIP or other funds to do it. And the other one is, I think, out of this process comes the necessary documentation to satisfy LCHIP and ourselves, so that when we go forward and say it's going to be, and yes, I think it is in the range of 200,000, when we go forward and ask for that money, in fact, we can rely on the figures that are there. I think that's probably most important, that we have the facts and figures that can satisfy the Exeter process, because we're going to be the the capital improvements process, because we're going to be asking for half of that money from Exeter, and they're going to really put it under scrutiny. And I think we need to be able to substantiate what we're talking about. So I would suggest that we get together and see if we can come to a meeting of the minds on what the level of documentation is. And there's time to do that if we do it.
So what I think that's a good recommendation, Don. So we're talking about a subcommittee of us meeting with Public Works. If you'll recall, we at the time we met with Public Works before, they had to pull back because of COVID. But now we may be in a position to move forward. So Kristen, your thoughts on scheduling something with Public Works, perhaps you and Don and me, or any others who might be interested. What do you think, Kristen?
I can try to schedule something.
Great.
I'd be glad to meet with you.
Great.
I could, since I was involved in the first go around.
So in the meantime, we are talking about needing to spend some amount of money getting the documentation prepared. We will, it might be too early at this juncture to make a specific request to conservation, but I think we need to alert them that an ask is going to be coming, even if we don't know the specific amount. One of the things that was in the various documents that we prepared up to this point was an idea that it was going to cost $1,200 to update the report. I don't know if that's accurate or not.
I suspect, sorry, I can't find a hand waving, and you can't see my hand, so I'll just talk.
Yeah.
I think that's very much on the light side.
Yeah.
I would recommend that when we speak of documentation, there's the conversation we want to have with Public Works to discuss this draft and come up with the draft that we would all agree upon. I would suggest that we wait until that's accomplished and we know what the scope of work is going to be for going out for a consultant. And I think once we have that, we'll be in a better position to maybe estimate what the amount of funding is we're going to need from the Conservation Commission or other source. That would be my recommendation at this point. I think it's premature to try to guess at what that money's going to be. I know from example of another work that has been done somewhat similar but more extensive, but that was in the range of $10,000. I'm not suggesting that that's what's going to happen here, but it's somewhere between that 1,200 and the 10,000 in that range, and we just don't have enough information right now to really come up with a figure. So I would wait till after the public meeting.
I think that's reasonable, but we're looking at approximately a three month window to move forward on this. So the first thing is to have that meeting. Did someone have something?
Yeah, I was going to. Oh, go ahead.
I would like to be included in that visit with the Public Works as well.
Kathy, Bill?
I was going to, Kristen, are there any grants off the top of your head, places we can seek grants, either through Moose Plate or the Great Bay? There's a Great Bay grant thing. It seems to me there's some that will allow funding for the preparation of a document like we want. Do you know of any offhand?
So I believe the deadline for Moose Plate may have passed. I think we discussed that as an option previously and chose not to go forward with a grant application. The other one is land transaction costs. And I don't know that that could cover something along these lines, but the Great Bay Partnership, I don't know that that would cover this type of thing. I think that's more, surveys or closing costs and things of that nature, but I can look into it.
Okay.
I think there was also if I remember correctly, Kristen, when we connected with Moose Plate, we'd asked them the specific question about whether that grant would cover this kind of request, and they were not very encouraging, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, that's correct. We were, I can't remember the category within Moose Plate that we were looking. It was their planning category or something of that nature. And they didn't really seem very supportive of this being an appropriate project for that.
So if we are in agreement that we want to move forward with LCHIP, I haven't heard anything to the contrary. Are we all on board with that?
Yeah, certainly, Don, again, I would just suggest that you did summarize it, or perhaps publish for all of us, and send an email or whatever, is the timeline that you talked about from here to there, because I think that will bring up other places or milestones in the timeline that we need to meet, and that could be a good governing document for us. Secondly, Christian, if you set this meeting up, is there a safe space around somewhere outdoors or somewhere we can have the meeting rather than just virtual?
I can think about that. I mean, the Novak room, so it was Kathy, Bill, Sally, yourself, myself, and at minimum, I assume Jeff Beck and possibly Jennifer Perry. So that's, 8 people, 7, 3. I think 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, yeah.
Whatever works.
So the preference is an in-person meeting then?
Yeah.
Public Works might just have a place that they're using for this sort of thing. I don't know. Check.
Could we have a meeting? Could we have a meeting in the town hall? There'd be plenty of space to.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure we could find a place to put 7 people. Okay,
so there is so our next step will be having this meeting, and then I will send out the timeline that I had in mind, and perhaps other material that we could send out to refresh everybody's memory about maybe the reminding people where the previous application is, because that would be where we'd start. There is the residual question, if you want to put it that way, of in the meantime, we've identified things that really need to be taken care of. There's the soffit that Kathy had mentioned, and the clapboards that are falling off. And so I think we need to come up with a plan, a strategy for dealing with those things that need to be, that we really can't wait. Now, we're not talking about a huge expenditure, because that would be the whole enchilada of if we got the LCHIP. But there are things that maintenance-wise that need to be taken care of, and so we need to come up with a strategy. And I think one of the things that I would like to do then is to bring this up to conservation and see what the commission is willing and prepared to do in terms of these maintenance issues that have to be taken care of. Bill?
I'm going to meet with Jeff Beck anyway. I could ask him what he thinks of those things, whether they are something that Public Works can do something with, or whether they can do it. And we have a little money from the town to repair things that, it's very small, but it's there. But I could check with him if you'd like.
Great. I think that's an excellent idea.
Bill, Don, I agree with that, because I think in the long term, fundamentally, and I've said this for, as Christian knows, a long time, is fundamentally Public Works should have the responsibility for Raynes Barn like they have the responsibility for any other building that they take care of, and have it in the budget for these kind of recurring maintenance items. They don't go to a department, I don't think they do, if there's something on a building and ask for money out of that department. The planning department doesn't provide funds in case a window in the planning department has to be repaired. So I just think Bill is right, and perhaps Jeff Beck may or may not have the funds, but I think we should keep that visible, that Public Works should have the responsibility for recurring maintenance on the Raynes Barn and build it into the budget.
He's done things, you put the light on the back of the barn and they would just did it, and no charge to us. And so, and he's done the physical things, clearing brush and whatnot with that. So let me investigate it.
Kristen?
Yeah, so two things. One, along the line of the conversation we were just having, that's so the L-chip meeting is yet another meeting with Jeff, and knowing how busy he is and how sometimes it's very difficult to set something up. Maybe we meet on site at the barn and we talk about short-term repair needs and then this longer-term plan for L-chip. So I'd be interested in hearing what you think about that. And then secondly, Don, I'm wondering, so you referenced a document that you've seen for repair design plans on another project. I'm wondering if we could even just get a snippet from that document to get a better understanding of what a thorough write-up of how a project is meeting Secretary of Interior standards looks like. I don't know if that's something, I know it's related to another hat you wear, so I don't know if that's something that we could get.
I'll look into that, Christian, and get back to you.
Kristen, could we set up some chairs on the proposed parking lot up at that knoll up by the barn, where we could, we've got about half a dozen chairs in the barn that we could bring out, I think, don't we? And if not, I could bring a few folding chairs, but we could set up socially distanced chairs up there. It's a flat area, good area. Might work. Okay.
I think you could meet in the barn. The going in the back of the barn to the far right is all open, and the center floor is open for 7 or 8 people with chairs. I think you would have plenty of room to social distance.
I agree.
In the barn.
Need to do it before it gets too chilly.
Great idea. There's nothing like meeting on the site.
Yeah, no, it's good.
The conditions.
It's good. So let's set up that meeting. We'll have it in the barn with chairs spaced appropriately apart, and that will be our next step. Is that okay with you, Kristen?
Good.
Do you go forward with that? Great. Thank you so much. Anything else, folks?
So I did want to, I know you mentioned them, but both Jillian and Richard, so Peter Smith had been a longtime serving member of this committee as representative of the Exeter Historical Society, and I was really excited. I think having this historical society representation is an important component of this, because this is your language. This is not, with a wildlife background, this is not my language. So I really do appreciate both of you for stepping up. So Jillian, you'll serve as our voting member with Richard, the alternate. But I did want to ask this committee if there's an interest in recommending to the Conservation Commission whether a Heritage Commission member should be a part of it. It's always kind of been a head scratcher for me why that's not the case. So I just wonder if that's something this committee is supportive of.
I think that's a really good idea. Before the meeting actually started, Bill and I were chatting about just that. aspect. And if you go to the Heritage Commission site, Raynes Farm is right there on their site. So I think it would be good to have somebody on Heritage on this committee. So we should bring that up to Conservation. And Bill suggested that we review the Raynes Farm Stewardship Committee bylaws in terms of what would be needed to be revised. So let's proceed with that.
I will let you know that I was just appointed to the Heritage Commission last night, Monday night, but I don't want to be the rep. I would like more people on this committee. That's what I'd like. So,
okay, good idea. We'll follow up with that. Okay, anything else, folks?
What you said, I would be glad to meet with Jillian at the barn to show them the barn at some point, unless you've been out there and you know what it looks like and what we're dealing with. That's the main part of the Stewardship Committee's responsibility.
I have been out there from the exterior. I haven't seen the interior of the barn, although I know that we do have items stored in there. So if we could set up a time where we could view the actual items that are stored in the barn, that would be fantastic. And also, if you're setting up, if you're looking for information for the signage, just let me know. I can do any research you need.
I can email you too, and Kristen get the key.
Yeah. Would it be possible to review the cemetery as well? I was out there yesterday, and it looks pretty great. But I did notice one of the stones was sort of being propped up by what looks like a second headstone. So I think it's worth reviewing what we know about the history of the cemetery and who should be there and should be represented there.
Yeah, I was also up to the cemetery yesterday. I took pictures of the stones, and I did put them on Find a Grave. That cemetery the burial ground was not on that database. In looking at it, I also suggest that maybe at some point in time you want to look at cleaning the stones. Martha Stone is very overgrown with pretty well overgrown with lichens. Some of you may or may not recognize the last name, but my family owned the monument business here in town for about 85 years. That's something I would be willing to do. It's something I've done for many years. I could also look at repairing that one stone. I think it's Jonathan Stone that is snapped in half. Those are all very good quality slate stones, so they are easily repaired. I have a friend that I can communicate with down in Connecticut, who is a stone conservator, and I could get some of the material that he uses for fixing stones and do that with that stone.
I think that's great. That's a great idea. I would say thumbs up on that.
Yes.
Thank you again for your interest and engagement with us.